Nathan, thanks so much for coming in. Sarah and Eddie have our microphones. Who's got the first question? We'll start with Mitch on your left, Nathan.
Nate, you guys have been so good at this year at kind of turning the page after games like last night. Kind of, how did you guys go about that last night and this morning, and what are kind of the general vibes around the team right now?
I mean, it's over with. That's one thing that is really good about this team is we're good at turning the page. Clubhouse is where it needs to be, and we're ready to go.
And the last time you guys faced Cam Schlittler, you were very effective against him. I'm just wondering what you liked in that approach and what you're trying to bring into today's game.
I mean, he's one hell of a pitcher. One of the best fastballs in the league. Just so happened last couple of times we faced him, he didn't quite have command over it. But today we expect him to have it, and we expect to hit it.
Go behind to Keegan in the fifth row. Right
there. Nathan, in these playoffs, both at home and then yesterday here in New York, how's the atmosphere and the environment compared to what you expect coming in? Like, what's it like to feel that?
We thought Toronto was a little bit louder, but New York, they when they started scoring some runs, it started to get a little bit louder. Regardless, it's amazing to play under all this noise, and it's fun.
Batting near Vladdy in the lineup, like we see what Vladdy does every day, but as a teammate, as a guy who has a pretty good view of what he's been doing lately, what impresses you most about him as a baseball player?
He clears his mind just from how he kind of ended the season into then going into playoffs. It's just he's turned it around. He's the leader right now.
About 7 rows back on your right, Shy.
Hey, Nate. Along those lines, just watching Vladdy and Judge, like, two dominant hitters in sports, sort of just counter-punching and counter-punching there. For you, what's it like watching that play out over the course of the series?
I mean, it's two of the best going head-to-head. Obviously, I'm taking Vladdy. I'm taking Vladdy today, and it's just been fun to watch.
And when you're in one of these postseason series, similar, I guess, to the regular season, but maybe a bit more intense because you're probably seeing different usages. When you're seeing relievers multiple times in close proximity, how does that extra information, how do you use that extra information? How does that impact your at-bats over the course of a series?
I mean, we see the shapes of their pitches. We get to see them over and over again, but regardless, we have the video, whether we've faced them once, twice, 3 times. So it's on us to do the homework.
And right behind Shy, Hazel.
Nathan, you've been very candid about when you were batting leadoff, you weren't all that comfortable. What's it like to have Springer in front of you and then Vladdy behind you, and how much do you have to be aware of the type of at-bat you're taking knowing that Vladdy is behind you?
Yeah, it's being sandwiched between those two, just kind of a dream come true. But as for like the other day when I hit the 2-run double, it was just either strike out or do not ground into double play. It's pretty much the way Vladdy's going right now. It's I need to get him into the box.
In speaking with Davis, he said playing left field or in the outfield at Yankee Stadium, there's a lot of words and things said to some of the outfielders. He tries to have fun with it. What is your experience with Yankee fans playing in the outfield?
I mean, pretty much the same. I start by turning my Instagram to private. That way I don't give them any more ammo. But, I mean, I try and give them some baseballs, try and have some fun with them. When they're this loud and rowdy, it's kind of hard to single out the voices, which is kind of nice. But when they're not as loud, those voices tend to get in your ear a little bit.
5th row on your right, Nathan Buck.
Nathan, after 10 years in the minor leagues, and I'm sure you've thought about this kind of experience, how does reality compare to what you thought it might be playing in your first postseason?
I mean, it's everything that I've seen on TV. Just growing up, watching these games, watching the playoffs, the World Series, it's everything I thought it would be.
You've had so much success this year, but you've had success everywhere you've played. Have you done anything differently this year than what you've done for the majority of your career in the minors?
Not a whole lot. It's just a matter of kind of given the opportunity and running with it. I don't want to go back.
Far back on your left, Nathan, Caleb.
Nathan, was there a moment or a swing or a play where you knew not only am I a big leaguer, but I'm an everyday big leaguer?
Oh man. I don't even know. There's plenty. Trying to think to the beginning of the season and any swing that helps the team, I guess every RBI, every sack bunt, drag bunt, squeeze, hit and run, kind of they all just blend together.
Questions for Nathan? All right, Nathan, thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it. All right, we'll get started with Schneider. Who has the first question? We'll start with Hazel in the back.
John, looking at your lineup, what is the thinking with Santander back in right field and having George DH?
I think kind of just, that's kind of how we've been operating and kind of how we can flip things, I think, at a certain point in the game and who may go in, defensively, whatever it may be. And those guys are aware of that. So I think just trying to keep everyone where they have been and knowing that we can kind of change it up if needed.
You guys had a couple of uncharacteristic miscues defensively. I'm curious what your thoughts are on whether those miscues can be contagious throughout a ball game, much like many managers believe hitting is contagious.
I don't think so. I don't think that's kind of not. That's not how we've played all year. Pretty uncharacteristic defensive game for us. So I don't think so. I don't think it gets contagious. Again, especially with this group, I think they kind of just move on and do what they're good at.
We'll go across the aisle to Ed on the left.
Hi, John.
Hey.
How'd you sleep last night?
Quickly, got home late. Slept okay. It's just haven't been doing much sleeping lately, so it was kind of par for the course. But nice to get woken up by my kids jumping on me this morning. So pretty much par for the course.
Go to the third row on your right, Danny.
Hey, John. Just curious what your communication style is to your pitching staff on a day like today.
Be flexible. Be ready. Again, we've done this. A lot of teams have done this. And there's no set script. I think everyone kind of understands where they fit within their lineup. And things can change in a hurry, So I think, Pete and Graham do a really good job of, communicating that with them. And I think that they've done it enough to where they're going to be prepared. You never know how the game's going to start. So you can have all the best, laid out plans and it changes. So I think that they have to be flexible and just be ready to go when the phone rings.
Go to the row behind, Jeff.
John, the guys that you have available for Game 5, Trey Savage and Kevin Gossman, what's their availability tonight, and what would the extent to which you can use them be?
I think probably Trey more than Kev tonight. Kev's going to throw lightly off the mound here this afternoon. Trey won't, but I think that you got to kind of see how the game goes and see what the score is, see where they are in their lineup, who you have available in addition to Trey or Kev or really anyone. So we'll see how the game goes, and I think that, again, one of those guys may factor in.
And one row behind Jeff, Jay.
Yeah. Hi, John. Ernie Clement has 7 hits over the past 2 games. What can you tell me about what he's done in particular to become such a tough out against lefties after struggling against them last year? And what has he meant to your team on both sides of the ball this season?
Yeah, good question. Ernie, I think, he has elite bat-to-ball skills. And I've seen him cover a foot above the zone and a foot below the zone, So with that comes a little bit of, volatility with the results. But Ernie is not scared of any situation. I think his play kind of shows that, the way he plays the game, whether it's on the bases, on defense, or at the plate. And I think he's pretty confident right now. When you get into the postseason and, stakes are a little bit higher, guys like that tend to kind of rise to the occasion, just guys that just play the game the right way. So lefties, I think that he's made adjustments with his approach, and I think he understands a lot more today than he did, last year or even a month ago, kind of how teams are approaching him. I think everyone knows he's a pretty aggressive swinger. So I think kind of taking that into his approach as well and hunting certain spots. But he's meant a lot to the team. You put him anywhere, I remember him saying, like, you can put me behind the plate, I'll catch. I think he was actually our emergency catcher at one point. So he's really, really fun to have, and his style of play can get a little bit contagious. But he's been really, really valuable to us this year.
Up front on your left, Ron.
In scripting lanes for the bullpen, do you and Pete do that last night, or do you wait till you see their lineup this afternoon and then put all your various scenarios together?
Yeah, you wait for their lineup, and then you kind of go through a lot of different scenarios. We started talking about it probably about 1 o'clock today, and again, there's no perfect science to it. It's still, you try to put guys in the best possible spots. At the end of the day, they got to go out and make pitches. They got to go out and execute. So score, inning, all that kind of stuff comes into play. You're just trying to find the right spots for it. And something that I know we've gotten better at as a staff. This is it's a pretty common thing to do in today's game. So I think you have to be pretty well versed in trying to execute it. We kind of gotten to the point to where, I know it can be, it's a bullpen day and what are they going to do? And it's, we take it as kind of a challenge, to where you got to tackle this and you try to thread the needle a little bit. But man, these guys, they know how to do it. And I think that they ultimately know they're going to be in spots for the most part that we think they're going to be pretty good, and they just got to go do the thing.
Can you and Pete keep that all in your head, or are there so many possibilities you have to write it down or type it out?
Right now, it's pretty well versed in my head. But no, we have a lot of things that are written down and color coded and coordinated with all sorts of stuff. But again, man, you're not just pushing a button at a certain point and saying, okay, this is time to do this. You're watching what the guys are doing. But it's nice to work with him, with Graham, with Luke and Sam, everyone, DeMarlo, Donnie. Hearing different ideas is always good, and kind of just, it sucks for me sometimes where you got to, hey, you're making the decision. But I think we as a group feel pretty good about what we're doing.
We'll stay up here with Greg.
John, with bowl making progress, how do you map out these next few days for him?
We'll see, man. I mean, the last 3 days have been pretty positive for him. He hit in our little sim game back in Toronto yesterday against Max and Chris, running today for the first time, and we'll take it a day at a time, and just listen to how he's feeling. So in talking to him when he got here yesterday, I think he's probably turned the corner a little bit in terms of making some steady progress. It wasn't just kind of hitting in the cage. It was facing some live pitching and knowing that he was going to be running today for the first time. So I think he's making some strides, and we'll continue to take it a day at a time.
Shy, seated near the back, right center.
Hey, John. When relievers are facing a team multiple times in a short series, how does that impact the matchups, preparing for the matchups, and the way perhaps they attack the opposition?
Yeah, it's a chess game, you know. I think that's what makes these series interesting and fun, and you can't take anything for granted. Biggest thing is you can't kind of fall into patterns. You know, this game is a lot about tendencies and, you know, trying to hunt a certain pitch or a certain area. At the end of the day, I think you have to go. There's so much information. You got to just go execute, and you have to know what you've done before. You can't really be a broken record. You know, there's a perfect way to do it where different guys are facing different parts of the lineup every day, but you get into series like this, and it just doesn't happen all the time. So there's some savvy, there's some gamesmanship that goes into it, and I think that's something we've been talking about the last couple of days, especially with the guys coming out of the pen.
Similarly, how do you see the dynamic between both Guerrero and Judge having really strong series playing out over for both teams within the series?
It's good for baseball, you know. I said it last night. They're performing on a big stage. I think it's cool for the sport to see that, to see some big name guys doing that. But I think it's, you know, more importantly, I think, you know, you can't get caught up in that too much. You know, I think we've talked about, you know, 9-on-1. We've talked about, you know, 13 guys contributing every single day. So I think the minute that you feel like you have to do it all yourself is when things start to go the wrong way. But yeah, it's been kind of as advertised with those two guys. You know, what they've done against, you know, what Vlad's done against them and what Aaron's done against us, you know. So I think it's a guy you're aware of for sure on both sides.
Third row on your left, Ben.
Hey, John. So we're learning pretty much now that Trey is available out of the bullpen. When did those conversations happen between you guys and Trey to let him know that this might be something that you would ask of him?
A while ago. I mean, I think that's why we did this in the minor leagues with him, you know, and it's, you know, I said part of the draw of game 2 was using his flexibility if we need it. So, again, it's not like a foregone conclusion we're going to use him. You know, we got to kind of see what plays out. But I think that in the probably weeks leading up to him even being called up, you know, that was something we started to look at in AAA and handled it well. And, you know, we'll see where today leads.
Fourth row, right center, Mike.
John, you guys wouldn't be where you are if you weren't good at turning the page on a loss and, you know, bouncing back the next day. But you guys hadn't blown a lead that big all year, and it was a closeout game, chance to put away this team in this place and stuff. Is there any different feeling putting that, you know, after last night's game and coming here today, putting that behind you and moving on?
Honestly, no. You know, I think that these guys have been through enough, and, you know, we've all been through enough where, I mean, you know, this team's not going away. You know that they're not rolling over by any means. So baseball happens. I always say baseball happens. You know, there's always a first time for everything, and it gets magnified in the postseason. But that wasn't the feel coming into the clubhouse after the game last night. It's definitely not the feel in the clubhouse today. You know, so it's every loss sucks. You know, every loss is the same, whether it's by 1 run or whether it's by 20. You know, every loss sucks. But I don't really feel much different than, you know, how it's been all year, where you got to come, formulate a game plan against a good pitcher, formulate a pitching plan for your own staff, and go out and compete your ass off.
Finish up 6 rows back on your far left.
Hi, John. Something very hard-hitting. Got to ask you about the white panel hats. You were on something of a hot streak with the white panel hats. Last night didn't go your way. I know you said you only packed that one for this trip, but what's the thinking around the hat and the rest of the postseason?
To be honest with you, I don't even know if we're wearing this today. I did bring my other hats. I kind of just said that in real time. But, yeah, I don't know what we're wearing. This was the one that was sitting in my locker, so I assumed we were wearing it. We've been playing well with them, right? So if we're rocking them, that's great.
All right, we'll be on the edge of our seats for the
Yeah.
decision.
Check us out at the Anthem, see what we're wearing.
All right,
yeah.
thanks, John.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it.